Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's a genuine shame that legacies only tend to be truly understood after somebody is gone. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can give us the old like and 5-star rating. Subscribe, basically wherever you get your podcasts. We're available over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, basically wherever you can find a podcast, that's where we are. And also we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, I'm a broken record, but I say it all the time. This is the most important thing. Please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, the moving image at large, because if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please, pay us a visit, stop on by. On this episode, we got an interesting one. It's something that's available on video-on-demand platforms now. It is called Diary of the Grizzly Man, and it's directed by Timothy Treadwell, who became famous from Werner Herzog's acclaimed documentary Grizzly Man, and it's a miniseries that's crafted out of Tim Treadwell's vast film archives and takes us into the sort of drama and life and death struggles of these Alaskan animals that he devoted his life to protecting and understanding, and it cost his life too. It's amazing. Like, if you haven't seen Grizzly Man, check it out, but check out Diary of the Grizzly Man as well if you want even more as well, because it's a fascinating watch. You can find it at a fairly inexpensive price over on iTunes or wherever you consume your video-on-demand content. But we had the distinct pleasure of talking with not only the producers of Grizzly Man, but Diary of a Grizzly Man, Erik and Jewel Palovak, just to ask about, I guess, going through it all and crafting sort of this story to sort of keep Tim Treadwell's legacy alive, and just sort of the process therein, and having to go through and sort of digitally remaster a lot of VHS tapes, which, because that's another thing, right? Depending on how a lot of this stuff was shot, some of it was not necessarily in the best quality, but it all looks pretty good. And it's worth seeing because it's kind of amazing to see just these animals operating in their natural habitat. And I think Erik and Jewel did a great job of sort of putting this back out there into the universe to allow Tim's legacy to live on, and considering what he did. I mean, for better or for worse, because, if you go into the research of it, you can kind of see both sides of the argument, but it's this, I think, allowed it to get back to sort of the nature and the animal of things, which I imagine is the point, to be perfectly honest. So, because it's just, again, one of those things that's worth seeing. It was ultimately fascinating, and I hope you enjoy our talk with Erik and Jewel, because it's a good one. And if you're interested, I can't stress this enough, go check out Diary of the Grizzly Man on your favorite VOD platform from our friends over at Shout Studios. But enjoy the talk. It's a good one.
Well, obviously, just first off, just thank you both for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Now, obviously, congratulations on the series, but I guess my first question is not just why now, but was sort of the plan always to do a series? Because, obviously, Werner's film took up a lot of the air in the room sort of back in the day when it came out initially. Is that why maybe there was a delay in just sort of going through it all and getting everything together?
Well, we knew when we started Grizzly Man that it was going to be a certain kind of film because of Werner's involvement. And
Yeah.
Werner's perspective was Werner's perspective. And he was interested in certain facets of Timothy's work, more of Timothy Treadwell's own obsession and all the things that make a great Werner Herzog movie. And as the producer of Grizzly Man and the person who brought the project to Werner in the first place, I was aware that we were leaving a lot of material on the table. Werner was interested in maybe 10% of Treadwell's footage. He wasn't interested in beautiful nature. He wasn't interested in a lot of what Timothy's day job was. So we always knew we had this amazing reservoir of footage that was untouched. So Grizzly Man had its way, and almost immediately we started thinking, what are we going to do with the rest of the material? And that became a rough cut kind of the series. Went on Animal Planet 3 years after Grizzly Man. And then we sat on the material until the technology allowed us to take Treadwell's material and restore it and bring it to widescreen and really make it look as good as it could look. And
Right.
I did a film, The Cold Blue, which took World War II footage and brought it to widescreen, that I'm happy to say predated both Peter Jackson's film and Apollo 11. And I have the restoration technology. So the time was right and the footage was timeless enough that it seemed like the appropriate time to do the film that Ted Treadwell died to make, which is the Grizzly Man Diaries. So the Grizzly Man and the Grizzly Man Diaries exist on parallel tracks. They both exist without one another. They both inform one another, but they both can be appreciated on their own or collectively. That's really up to the viewer.
Well, and I mean, I think I have to harp on something you just said about sort of his day job. And I mean, it really feels like these episodes highlights what his day job was, where maybe that got a little lost in the shuffle in terms of the film. Can you guys talk a little bit about that and just trying to make sure that, I guess you got what Tim wanted to do and sort of his sort of idea for all this up on the big screen?
It was the film he was making. I'll let Jewel say, but basically he got a director credit. He was out with a camera making a movie.
Yeah.
And he filmed a movie. And that movie, what Grizzly Man was the making of that movie.
Right.
And it's a fascinating thing. This is the actual movie, and which is why it's on a parallel track. And now both can be seen individually and collectively. And if you are buying into Timothy Treadwell's view of nature and his mission, you're going to love Diary of the Grizzly Man. If you think he was a deranged obsessive who had a very naive view of nature, then come on down to Grizzly Man. And maybe the truth, the reality lies somewhere in between the two projects.
Yeah, I always kind of like to liken Grizzly Man to like a photo album of a person's life where, hey, here's your big birthday. Look, grandpa retired. Oh, we got a new puppy. We're just kind of like different things of Timothy's life were sort of put in the forefront through Werner's eyes and through Timothy's camera work. But Erik is right. I think that Diary of the Grizzly Man is something more, like you said, his day job, his day-to-day life, the realization that he was completely immersed in this and kind of, kind of like a founder of this, the video selfie movement that we have today of just documenting everything, documenting every little bit. And we also were fortunate that he kept a meticulous diary. Like he would film in the day and take photos, and then he would look at the film at night while he was in his tent and write his journals. So we had, we could cross-reference them and pretty much pull up whatever we needed if we read something interesting in the diary.
No, I mean, I guess my next question is how much actual raw footage was there that you had to sort of comb through to sort of get these together?
About 100 hours of footage. And when we did Grizzly Man, a team went through the footage and meticulously boiled it down to the 10 hours that Werner had said, I'm looking for. And then he drew Grizzly Man from that 10 or so hours. But the logs that we had, we had the footage in-house, and we had Treadwell's diaries. So Treadwell's diaries became the script and our sort of kind of directed us to certain things that Treadwell knew he had filmed. And that ultimately became the spine of Diary of the Grizzly Man, hence the title, Diary of the Grizzly Man.
Erik, can you talk a little bit about just sort of the restoration process? Because when we think of restoration, we always think of working from film or negative elements, but I don't think I've ever sort of quite understood the process when it comes people are working from old high eights or video 8 or DV
Well,
camera,
first
that
off,
kind of thing, or whatever you shot on.
Well, first off, it was shot in 3x4, and now it's widescreen 16:9. So that we had to reposition all the shots and be very careful to Timothy's composition, make some judgments, but, lay the films out in a different aspect ratio. Then we have various, I won't get into the trade secrets, but removing the grain, adding extra layers of resolution to it, color correcting every frame, really crawling all over it. Not unlike what Peter Jackson did, not on the World War I project, which was pretty much animated 3D over existing footage. When he did Get Back, he took 16 millimeter 3x4 footage, brought it to widescreen, eliminated the grain, and made it look like it was shot yesterday. So, we're using the same technology to create a level playing field with viewers' expectations today. Time the viewer sees anything in 3x4, they think it's old and archaic.
Right.
And we felt strongly that Timothy's work demanded a fair field. And even in today's selfie iPhone culture, nobody's going to go up to the Katmai forest and live with bears for 13 years, giving them nicknames and coming within 2 feet of them and hand feeding them. Even today, that's
no
never going to
hand
happen.
feeding was happening.
Hmm?
No hand feeding was
No, there you go. You see, Jewel, print the legend, as we always say. But he would certainly nuzzle them, and they touch him. We have footage where he touches their nose and they twitch.
Right,
and
he
go
touches them, but he doesn't feed them.
Okay, well, I thought he should have fed them maybe, but I stand corrected. But what I'm saying though is he got intimate and close with the bears and filmed the process, and no one's going to do that today.
No, he'd been shut down.
What kind of challenges come up when you're producing something like this and you don't necessarily have the filmmaker there for
But we did
reference?
that.
Because
We did though. We have all his films, so he knows when he's doing multiple takes. The last one's usually the best one. We have his diaries where he writes, "This is what happened," and we have the footage that matches what happened. And when you sync up his diaries about what was happening with the footage, and then any filmmaker can. It's not too hard to construct a narrative out of this spectacular footage. I mean, this is some of the most astonishing nature footage ever taken by anyone ever. So you'd have to be a pretty inept filmmaker not to, find something good in that. And it wasn't that difficult. If you go take say his diaries provide the structure, his finished takes, last takes provide the stand-ups, and the best shots that he took in these particular sequences compose the sequence, and we let the things breathe. We're not under a time constraint, and we don't have any predeterminations, or we're not trying to make any points. We're just letting the story unfold the way Treadwell wanted it to unfold.
Plus, I knew him for 20 years, and I looked at his stuff and read his stuff. At the beginning, it seemed like ad nauseum. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. And so I feel like between all the things that Erik said and me, having phone tapes of him, or letters, or, working with him so closely for fundraisers, I feel like we really did do what he would like. But I understand your point.
There's always going to be a question, but we felt very comfortable in giving Timothy the directing credit in the film, and he deserved it. This is his film. He shot it. He wrote it. He inhabited it. He hosted it. For anyone else to take a director's credit would be wrong. It was a very easy decision on my part to give him his deserved credit for it.
Why do you think his personal touch still sort of rings true today? Because, I mean, obviously, we see nature documentaries all the time, but they all have sort of that National Geographic.
Well, precisely. They're arm's length. There's usually a David Attenborough or a David Attenborough-like figure who's telling you what you're seeing and setting it up. The footage is usually shot from a distance or with telephoto, very meticulous. These are incredible films, but it's not some guy who's on a mission to coexist and become one with the bear and one with the fox, who really wanted to intimately find out how they lead their lives by getting as close to them as humanly possible. That's just not something people are doing. And someone might say, well, yeah, look what happened to Timothy Treadwell. That's the reason why people aren't doing it. And they probably have a point.
Do you think his work may have changed if he had been alive today with the technology, like shooting on his phone or shooting on a drone with a GoPro, that kind of thing?
He might have. It might have looked better. I mean, Jewel, you can speak. He had a very primitive, in today's technology, video camera, but he used the technology.
It was what you could buy at the time, a Sony DCR VX 1000, and then we moved right into the 2000s. But right. Yeah, you know what? He was very proud of every little thing that he did, and he loved to share everything with everybody. Yeah, I think he would have had him a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and he would have been wondering how many likes he got and followers and all that kind of stuff. I think he would have embraced it. I think he was a little bit of I don't know if Luddite is the right word, but he wasn't that good technically with the patients in that kind of world. So it might have taken a little bit of practice, but yeah, I think he would have liked it a lot right now.
Was his story at the end of the day, is his story a cautionary tale, or is it one that maybe needs to be tried again, but with maybe a little bit more? I mean, I'm looking for the right word, because I mean, obviously the stuff that he did is so engaging and it's so personable, and it really makes you feel for these animals and understand sort of the plight that they're going through. But at the same time, you wonder where the line is. I mean, it feels like that's something he was even debating with up until the end.
Well, that's true. And I'd say Timothy is a cautionary tale. I don't see there's any real need for anyone to go do that again, to do another Timothy Treadwell. I think his 13 years and the 10,000 stills that he captured and the hundreds of hours of footage, I think he pretty much covered this particular niche. I wouldn't recommend any filmmaker that they try to duplicate it, which is why, again, it was an imperative that we take what he did and restore it and make it as good as possible so it can survive, not unlike taking William Wyler's B-17 footage from 1943 and bringing it to widescreen. It's the same impulse, because you're not going to get inside a B-17 over Nazi Germany today. This is the only footage that exists of it.
No,
so to
right.
me, but if it's in 3x4 and all scratched up, nobody was going to, it wasn't going to pop. And so, this is my world of restoration. And you mentioned at the top, well, why now? Well, after the Cold Blue, and I felt, it was time to tackle this. We had the technology to tackle it and get it right. Get it right for the ages. Jewel, I don't know.
I think in some ways, yeah, he's a cautionary tale, but you have to also remember he lived out there with really no incident for 13 years. Whether he was their friend or not, as he liked to think, he definitely was part of the landscape of the bears. I mean, the reason he could get so close to a mothering cubs is the cub had seen him, when it was, or the mother had seen him when it was a cub. And I also think that he really tried so hard to immerse himself in the world of the grizzly that maybe he actually succeeded, and in the end was treated like another animal. Do you understand what I mean?
No, I do absolutely. And I mean, I think that comes through because it's such a fascinating watch just to see him interact and see him sort of be in these environments and how he's reacting. And it's such a fascinating thing just to be able to experience. And I mean, I just want to, I guess, thank you both for, like you said, Erik, making this pop and really sort of preserving these moments for people to see and really sort of get a sense of not who these animals are, but who Tim was as well as a person. I just want to thank you both for the time today.
Well, thank you. And the key is that Timothy had to live there 13 years and ultimately gave his life to bring this footage back. All anyone has to do now is go to either Amazon or Apple TV and search for Diary of the Grizzly Man and rent it or download it and watch it on as big a screen as possible, right? So it's a pretty easy, it's an e-ticket ride very easily to kind of immerse yourself in something that truly is extraordinary, that is what's the phrase, stranger than fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have given that plug any better myself.
Well, we have to, we have to speak up for our art, and,
Well,
and again,
absolutely.
and honestly, Timothy Treadwell deserves this work. He has this I think is a worthy companion of Grizzly Man, but as I said, they exist on parallel tracks. They exist complementary, or they exist in their own universe.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I'm happy for this generation, like a newer generation, to maybe see a different side, or to be turned on to Grizzly Man, or to see, someone that sort of was a pioneer in things that are daily life right now. As far as documenting every movement of your entire day,
No, for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, and so am I, and I'm excited for more people to get to see this. And Erik, Jewel, thank you again so much for the time today. This was a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.